Today, I want to talk to you about the meaning in the story as opposed to the meaning of the story. It's closely related to the meaning in life as opposed to the meaning of life. So, more about that in just a second. But before I dive into that, if you're listening to this on Sunday morning when it comes out, I am down in Southern California at my son's wedding, which I'm so excited to be at, obviously. And earlier this summer, one of my daughters was married, and next year my other daughter will be married. So within about a year, all three of my kids will go from not married to married. Julie and my life is about to change a lot. I really enjoy Live It Up, sharing with you my ongoing journey. There are times when I wish I had more time to polish. I wish I had more time to make all of these perfect and put a bow on them. But I'm trying to be very just real with you and give you an honest, unvarnished look at what it's like to live a life facing up. Coming up, after the first of the year, I will have a class, and I'm calling it orientation, and more about that to come. But I'm trying to put together a path, a clear, guided process for people who are interested in entering into this life. And so anyway, after January, that will be coming. I'll start it off with some beta testing. So if you're a person who finds that interesting, if you would like to be one of my beta testers to go through the class, give me feedback. Just let me know. Email me or let me know. Back to the main line of thought, the meaning of the story versus the meaning in the story. Leaving the Christian faith for me was very difficult because there were parts of it, that were very meaningful to me. I think about my mother reading Aslan the Chronicles of Narnia, I should say, to me as a child, or standing in the kitchen and talking about life's big issues with her and, just the nature of God and all of that. My experience as a pastor had many, many positive features too. And every Sunday, I loved to preach. I loved to study the Bible and look for the meaning in the scripture and bring that out. And so leaving that all behind was difficult. And I didn't feel like a person who, I just wanted to turn my back on all that and spit on it and say, oh, isn't that all just foolishness? And but at the same time, I struggled because I no longer believe that the stories were true in the way that I used to think they were. And so as read my whole story, but the whole thing just didn't pan out. And yet there was truth in it. So what has helped me is this idea of the meaning in the story versus the meaning of the story. Christianity as this is how it went down, guys. 6,000 years ago, God snapped his fingers and there was earth, and then he made a man. Oh, first he made all the animals, and just like in Genesis, and then he made a human, a man, and then a woman in garden, and that's how the earth went down. And and then Jesus came, and then it's all going to end with a rapture, or depending on how you interpret Revelation, anyway, on and on I could go. But so to take the Bible in this very literal way and think this is not a story, or I hate to use the word myth because it's so loaded. When you hear the word myth, at least as a Christian, it just says, oh, it's not true. But that's not what I mean by myth. To hear it as a fable or a legend, or, my friend Jim, I keep talking about my friend Jim, man, but he uses the word parable. And that I like that word because it's not so negative. But so to take the Bible as a parable, or as a, something that we look to and find meaning in, that makes a lot of sense. because there is a lot of meaning in Scripture. And in fact, there's like meaning in just about anything you choose to look at and study. But when you try to take that thing, whether it's the Bible or any story about life, and you try to make that the meaning of life, then the story becomes reality, capital R, and it always cracks. I noticed this when I was a pastor. Most of the times, my messages were finding the meaning in the Scripture and drawing, pointing out these things and finding these things in life that were true and beautiful and connecting dots and, just like, wow, look at the meaning in this story. But every now and then I felt like I needed to do the apologetics thing and stand up and talk about, prove that, the resurrection actually happened, or whatever, that this and that were literally true. And so I would be propping the Bible up as the meaning. The Bible, there was not just meaning in the Bible was the meaning. And so, in that case, I had to say that the Bible was inerrant, because, right, if this is a story of God, if this is truth, capital T, then it has to be true, 100% true. And anytime I did a sermon like that, I sometimes came in really well prepared with all the evidences and proofs and, defenses of the Christian faith. And I noticed that very quickly into those sermons, people's eyes glazed over and they weren't that interested. I could see that it was falling flat, because the meaning, if you try to make the Bible the meaning, the Bible is the meaning of life, or try to find the meaning in the Bible. I'm struggling to say this, but when you try to make the content that you're trying to find the vessel. The vessel is the Bible. The story is in the Bible, and the stories contain meaning. But when you try to make the stories the meaning or the Bible the meaning, it's like you shift from a deep truth that's reflected in these stories, and all of a sudden these stories become the truth, but the stories are not the foundation of existence. They are expressions, human expressions, beautiful, some not so beautiful, but they are expressions of human existence. So it's been encouraging to me to be able to look back on the Bible and Christian faith and say, wow, there is a lot of meaning in the story of God laying down his life out of love for us. There's meaning in, pick a story in the Bible, Jesus walking on the water, or calming the sea, or healing a leper, or whatever it may be. You can find meaning in those stories, and you can go back into the Old Testament and also find lots of incredible meaning in the stories of creation. But if you try to make the stories of creation the meaning, then it takes on a rigidity and it becomes dogma and it just cracks. I'm taking way too long to say something really simple, but this understanding doesn't only apply to stories in the Bible, it also applies to life. Now make a shift with me from the Bible to, your life. Many people are looking for the meaning of their life. And that's the big, existential question. What is the meaning of my life? Well, to answer that, I would need to know the meaning of everything. Who is God, and how did I get here, and what's the story of me? And as if the story of me is like I'm going to find meaning in my life, or in the story of my life, that's the real, where the substance is. And the problem with that is we just don't have enough knowledge, understanding, awareness to be able to see all that's behind our existence. We see such a tiny sliver of the whole. Almost everything is unknown to us. So trying to take this little piece and make it the whole thing, just, what is the meaning of my life? I don't have enough context or understanding to answer that question. But now make the shift with me. What if I shift from the meaning of my life to the meaning in my life? And in the same way that I now can look at Scripture and find the meaning in the stories, I look at my life and I go, how can I find the meaning in my life? And I find all kinds of possibilities there. The meaning of just being kind to my wife and like entering into this senior years together with, like in a beautiful way where there's love, and being there for my kids, or showing up at work with joy in my heart and encouraging people. All of those things are deeply meaningful, but those are not the meaning of my life. They're the meaning in my life. But the weird thing is that when I sort of give up on this idea that I'm going to discover the meaning of my life and focus instead on the meaning in my life, I paradoxically experience the meaning of my life, because it's not something, the meaning of my life, I'm convinced, is not something I can ever understand or wrap my mind around. It doesn't mean there is no meaning. It just means that my human perception is incapable of wrapping around this big existential question. As a human with my limited perception, limited intellect, limited everything, limited lifespan, lots of limits, I can't grasp those big questions, but I can touch them. And I touch them when I sort of let go of this, desire to be like God and know everything, and just relax and experience the meaning in my life each day. So when I get up in the morning, I ask, what is the meaning in my life today? And I always look at the three breaths. I think about, I choose wonder. And what's my adventure today? I choose acceptance. How will I play today? I'm going to enter in and I'm in today. I'm going to play this day. I'm going to play to win, and it's going to be with joy. Or the third breath, I will think about, I'm going to show compassion today and be kind. And there's deep meaning in that when I do those things. So surrender the meaning of your life, find the meaning in your life. And it applies to how we look at just about anything. But for me, as a former Christian, how I look back at my faith, I look at, wow, there was meaning in that. There's meaning in the Bible. But I no longer try to hold the Bible up as the, meaning of life like I did back in the day. I hope that's useful to you. And right now I'm probably dancing around on the dance floor. I'm glad you don't have to see that. I'll see you again next week with a report on the wedding and something else to share about the journey of living it up.